Alex Eala has spent the last year doing something that changes a player's career forever. She has stopped being a prospect and started becoming a problem. Not a future problem. Not a player people think might eventually become dangerous. A problem right now. When you beat Grand Slam champions, when you defeat top 10 players, when your name starts appearing in conversations about the second week of major tournaments instead of simply qualifying for them, the questions people ask about you change. They stop asking whether you belong. They stop asking whether you have potential. They start asking who stands in your way. And that is where Alex Eala finds herself heading into Wimbledon. Because over the last 12 months, a small group of names has appeared again and again whenever people discuss her future. Some of those names are former champions. Some are current champions. Some are players she grew up watching before eventually sharing a court with them. Together, they represent the biggest obstacles between Eala and the place every elite tennis player ultimately wants to reach. The top of the sport. The first name is probably the most obvious. Iga Świątek. Long before Alex Eala became one of the most talked about young players on the WTA Tour, Świątek represented the standard she was chasing. Multiple Grand Slam titles, world number one of the defining players of her generation. Eala has spoken openly about her admiration for Świątek over the years, which is what made their meeting at the Miami Open in 2025 so significant. It wasn't simply a young player upsetting a favorite. It was a moment where one of the sport's future stars defeated one of its established giants. The result immediately became one of the biggest wins of Eala's career. More importantly, it changed the way people viewed her ceiling. There is a difference between believing a player can become very good and believing they can compete for major championships. Beating Świątek pushed Eala into the second category. What makes the matchup fascinating is how different their games are. Świątek overwhelms opponents through relentless pressure and physicality. Eala prefers creativity, timing, angles, and early ball striking. When those styles meet, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. And there is a growing feeling around the sport that this is only the beginning of their story. If Świątek represents one version of the challenge, Aryna Sabalenka represents another entirely. Because sooner or later, every player with Grand Slam ambitions has to answer the same question. Can they beat the world number one? Sabalenka has spent the last several seasons establishing herself as the benchmark in women's tennis. Her power is unmatched. Her serve can completely take over matches. When she is playing well, she forces opponents to compete on terms they never wanted. That is what makes her such a significant figure in Eala's future. The rivalry has not fully developed yet, but many analysts believe it is only a matter of time. Players with Eala's trajectory inevitably collide with players like Sabalenka. The deeper she advances in major tournaments, the more likely those meetings become. And if Eala truly wants to win Grand Slam titles, there is a very good chance the path will eventually lead through the Belarusian. Then there is Elena Rybakina, a player who may have become Eala's most important measuring stick on grass. A few days ago in Berlin, Eala produced one of the most impressive victories of her career by defeating the 2022 Wimbledon champion in straight sets. The result turned heads throughout the tennis world because of when it happened. This wasn't a random win in the middle of the season. It came less than 2 weeks before Wimbledon, on the same surface where Rybakina has historically been at her most dangerous. Eala fell behind early. She absorbed some of the biggest power on tour. She handled one of the sport's most effective grass court games. And she won. The significance of that victory extends beyond ranking points or headlines. It demonstrated that Eala's game translates exceptionally well to grass, a fact that coaches and analysts have increasingly emphasized throughout the 2026 season. When a player beats Rybakina on grass, people pay attention. The tennis world certainly did. The most interesting rival, however, might be Coco Gauff. Not because of their history, because of their future. Gauff is only a few years older than Eala. Both have become global stars at young ages. Both are expected to remain among the sport's most important players for the next decade. Tennis has a habit of creating rivalries between players who rise together. Federer and Nadal. Djokovic and Murray. Świątek and Sabalenka. The ingredients are already present for Eala and Gauff. Their games are different, their personalities are different, their journeys have been different, yet they are arriving at the same destination at roughly the same time. Whether the rivalry develops will depend on future meetings. But the possibility is impossible to ignore. All of this brings us back to Wimbledon. Because rivalries are interesting, in theory, Wimbledon is where they become real. For the first time in her career, Alex Eala arrives at the All-England club carrying genuine expectations. Not simply hope, not curiosity, expectations. She enters the tournament as the number 29 seed, the first Filipina ever to earn a Grand Slam singles seeding. She arrives after one of the best grass court stretches of her professional career. Her wins over Rybakina and Alina Svitolina in Berlin have convinced many analysts that her game may be even more dangerous on grass than it is on clay or hard courts. That matters because Wimbledon has always rewarded players willing to attack. Players who take the ball early. Players who trust their instincts. Players who refuse to wait. Those qualities have become defining characteristics of Eala's game. The challenge, of course, is that Wimbledon may have the deepest women's field in years. Sabalenka is there. Świątek is there. Gauff is there. Rybakina is there. Mira Andreeva is there. Every player discussed throughout this video could easily find themselves standing across the net from Eala before the tournament is over. Which is what makes the next 2 weeks so fascinating. Because the conversation surrounding Alex Eala is no longer about whether she belongs at this level. The rankings have answered that. The victories have answered that. The respect she has earned from players and analysts throughout the sport has answered that. The question now is how close she is to joining the group she has spent years chasing. The rivals are already established. The stage is already set. And Wimbledon may provide the next chapter. When the draw is released, pay attention to where her name lands. Somewhere in that bracket may be a meeting with Świątek, or Sabalenka, or Gauff, or Rybakina. The players who currently define women's tennis. And the players Alex Eala may soon be joining. How far do you think she goes at Wimbledon this year? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.